Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to WCS America, where we've been having some cracking games. I only did that on purpose because I know Todd makes him sad. All weekend long. Thank you for tuning in. It has been a long couple of days of StarCraft 2. It's coming to an end, ladies and gents, because the final game is almost upon us. Todd, excusing the crackers, it's been good.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. That last series, actually, I think CranK played it really, really well. Shigwa really brought it to him in the game number 2, but that was some solid play out of him. I'm pretty impressed by CranK overall. I knew that he was going to come into this as one of those guys that, again, much like many other, practiced a lot, and he knows how important this is. And in the end, he looks fairly relaxed. Like we saw him kind of go crazy in between the break, between some games, just laugh and stuff. Like looking at his monitor. I wonder who he's chatting with. Maybe TB is making like the sneakiest comments.
Maybe, but he looked like a crazed maniac at times. Yeah. Now I was wondering what the heck was going on for a moment. Let's check in with the bracket and make sure you are absolutely up to date with where we are in Group D. It was the Group of Death, we dubbed this one. It had Polt and Bomber in it. Polt has already advanced to the round of 8 in the upper half of the bracket. And in the lower half, Bomber now taking on CranK, who came through a difficult match against the Chinese Zerg, Shigawa. And Bomber and CranK go head-to-head now. It's a tricky match, this one, for Bomber, but it's a tricky match for CranK. Do you think that CranK goes into this with less pressure, though, because he's known as he's looked at as the underdog in this matchup, but he's also looked at as the underdog in the group because we have Polt and Bomber in there, such overwhelming favourites. Does that take the pressure off CranK, make it easier for him to be a bit more cunning and maybe play a little different style?
I don't think he's putting too much pressure on himself. I mean, he's the guy who said that if he you wouldn't care if he didn't win or something like that, which you will never hear from a player. So I think he should just go into this thinking that he's going to feel comfortable, he's going to want to develop his own game, he has his own builds. We actually saw CranK go for basically a different build on every single map, and in particular versus Terran in this tournament so far. So he did a proxy before, he did a blink all-in. I expect him to keep on mixing it up, and it's going to be for Bomber to be able to keep up with this, because if Bomber lowers his guard, it's our final match here, he could be eliminated. Yeah. I think he's the favorite, but if he's not careful, CranK could take him out here. Yeah,
CranK. I think we've established that CranK is a dangerous player to play against at the best of times. Do you think that map choice is going to play a part in the outcome of this match now? I mean, we've generally seen the same maps, vetoed and what have you, but with them knowing already what these two have come up with, we saw CranK earlier on with a little bit of a different strategy on habitation, for instance. Does Bomber think, oh, I don't quite like that, maybe I'll get rid of that, and maybe that mixes it up a bit?
I think CranK is probably the guy that will change things up towards the map, because he's the guy who always has a build on a specific map. So maybe if he ran out of builds, say, for habitation, on which his main build was Blink, he might end up vetoing it. But overall, I would say maybe one different map overall, but at least 2 similar ones from the last series will be my guess.
Okay, are you sticking with Bomber for this one, though? Or are you going back with your Protoss brethren?
You know what? We already got a lot of Protosses in WCS Europe. We got 3 already qualified, I think, here. I'm going to go with Bomber this time.
Okay, thank you very much, Todd. Let's go over to the commentary team for our final game of the evening and also the final game of the round of 16 here at WCS America. Don't forget the quarterfinals start on Thursday, this coming Thursday and Friday, with the semis on Saturday and the grand final on Sunday for both WCS America and WCS Europe. It's going to be back-to-back matches all night long. Let's find out who the last man to qualify for the round of 8 is with your commentary team for our final game.
Thank you very much, Red Eye, and indeed that is going to be a lot of fun, but it's still pretty far away, 4 days, so you guys have some time to recover from all this StarCraft action that you had this weekend. And Nathan, as much as I love StarCraft, 1 or 2 days to recover from this is not too bad.
Yeah, we've been going late into the night. The games have been absolutely amazing, mind-melting action, but sometimes you need a little bit of time to recover.
It's been a long day, of course, and this is a big question that's up on my mind. Who copes better with the circumstances that they dealt with? Because at the end of the day, it's 1 AM right now, guys, in Europe. It's been a long day, of course. We had to play 2 groups because everything was a little messed up in WCS America, but I think we went through it really well. We had a lot of fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. But right now, there is a single best of 3 on the line, which determines will we see Bomber next week or is it going to be CranK? They went up against each other earlier today. CranK showed us that he's full of tricks, and he got pretty damn close to winning that first best of 3. If he would have done it, he had to go up against Polt. In this situation, it was Bomber going up to Polt, but neither of them, or perhaps at least Bomber, wasn't ready to take on Polt just yet. Perhaps he is next weekend. This is the map veto process that Paul and Letut were just talking about. Will we see a different map?
You know, I think it was a good point that I think it was Tyler Red I mentioned about having builds for specific maps, and I don't necessarily know that Habitation Station would get vetoed by CranK, but I think he's got to be looking at maybe maps where his one-off builds, like that Blink on it, there's no way if that map came up again that Bomber wouldn't at least consider that possibility. So I feel like that kind of makes things interesting, but we're still seeing, you know, other standard vetoes like Alterzim and Daedalus.
Yep, this is where it gets interesting. Bomber vetoing Frost. Now that is interesting because he won Frost early today. And I feel in general, you can see CranK freaking look, he's like, Frost? You just vetoed Frost? Did you just do that on me? And now Bomber tells him which map to veto. And now CranK is a little bit perhaps caught up in between. He's like, well, then in that case, I'll veto Youngsu. That's the map where he went for the proxy gate. In case you guys missed it, a map that Bomber was able to win convincingly in the end. He didn't really take a whole lot of damage, and the first drop pretty much sealed the deal.
Yeah, this is. I feel like it's fun, just not obviously because these guys played in the very first match. Well, I guess the second match we looked at today, but they played so much earlier, and now they've gotten to see each other play in these matchups. And also, just that fatigue comes into play that you mentioned. It was funny, you know, CranK just coming out of a series that he had to play versus Shigwa. Bomber, we noticed while we were watching, he was trying to take a nap in the corner, get himself a little bit rested for this match. And how much does that, you know, there's the amount of time that they've spent watching these matches and playing really cut into their ability to play.
Habitation Station is going to be our first map, and I believe Polar Knight is going to be second, and last but not least, Heavy Rain if it's necessary. Should be a really fun best of three. So much at line. Will it be Bomber having another shot at a WCS title? He's never won a regional tournament, but he did win the World Championship finals last year. This year we don't have World Championship finals, or at least not season finals in between. So if Bomber wants to win another WCS title, Nathan, he's going to have to win one of these.
Yeah, and this is not a bad time to make it happen. He was able to defeat CranK, but as we can see here, he is he's no weakling. Of course, statistically speaking, we saw he was able to take out Shigwa in that tough series. His PVZ was pretty solid. But I feel like at this point, you know, this is it. There's only one spot left, one best of three to determine it. It's almost time to just throw everything out the window. If you have anything left, this is it. Your whole season depends on this one match. And it's got to feel intense for both of these players, I feel, because CranK showed he can do builds that will trick Bomber in the first series they played.
I couldn't agree more. It's hard to think of, but this has been a road that's been going on for at least a month, if not almost 2 months right now, for both these guys to get here. They came this far. Now one best of three is going to make the difference. Will we see them next weekend, where we will do the finals of WCS America combined with the finals of WCS Europe? It's the first time ever that's going to happen. And even though it's, you know, it's an... We improvised a little bit by making it happen this way. I'm also actually particularly excited for it, because how awesome is it to just like keep track of two amazing tournaments at the same time?
So many good players under one roof. It's almost
it's definitely fun.
It's crazy, yeah.
As we always say, the more the merrier. Well, why have 8 amazing StarCraft 2 players when we can have 16, of which all of them are in the quarterfinals? That makes no sense.
Oh man, it's scary to think that one of these two players have to be eliminated with the prestige and success that they've had over the course of the last year. But starting everything off on Habitation Station, this was CranK's map in the first series that they played, and I'm really wondering if what exactly he has. You know, you obviously can't do it again. No, there's no way.
He's not gonna do it again. There's almost no way that he's gonna do it again. Is he gonna do something else crazy? Maybe. Does he have to? No, absolutely not, because we saw it earlier as well. CranK is capable of playing a longer game. I felt maybe he got a little too over-eager when he was doing so much fancy stuff on Frost. He's like, oh, this is going amazing. I'm just going to go ahead and win this game. Well, that didn't happen just yet, but he showed us how good he is with stuff like Storm drops, or just like Storms in general, Zealot run-bys. He didn't even have charge on that moment. Imagine a later phase in the game where he will have charge. He's relentless when it comes to that late-game harassment.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The game where he pushed for the most, I guess I don't want to say economic, but the upgrade-heavy opening where he played for the macro game, he was able to make some really good plays, and I think getting caught in an awkward position up that ramp definitely hurt him. But Habitation Station, that well, I feel like there's just a lot of options for both races in this map. Let's find out as we are loaded in. The final match of the round of 16 for the World Championship Series of America in StarCraft 2 begins now. We have our first player, the Red Protoss, in the top left position, playing for Axiom and playing tired. It is CranK. It's been a long day of games of StarCraft. And this man, just waking up from that nap, the blue Terran player, sponsored by Red Bull, it is Bomber.
As we said multiple times, Habitation Station is going to be in the map once more. They played it earlier today. CranK had a very special strat, a strat that we normally say, that's not good at Habitation Station. I mean, blink all-ins are not that good. Two-base blink all-ins, you know, not popular at all on this map because there's almost no surface area to blink into the main base. Then CranK just said like, well, I expect you, at least that's what Todd said, and I trust Todd's word on it. I think that you are going to go Oracle, so if I go for a one-base blink all-in, that might be very good against your Oracle build. And it was. It couldn't have played out any better for CranK. It got a little close in a certain moment, but Bomber just had so few units to work with. I do not think that we're going to see something similar like that. And so far, no refinery has been dropped just yet.
Yeah, pretty much all the Terran versus Protoss that we've seen played on this map in the entirety of the round of 16, it's been strictly either 15 gas or it's been only 15 gas, except for, I guess, the game the Bomber played here. We went for 16 and just went for a fast factory before any type of reactor-based play. But 2 gas taken by CranK. Certainly not looking to get the fastest Nexus possible.
I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Bomber just go for a no-gas fast expand build. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a build that's a little outdated, but since this is such a poor Reaper map, you might as well. It's still a pretty damn solid economic build, which, you know, it won't give you the scouting that the Reaper fast expand gives you, but it's even a little more economical. So.
Yeah, actually, like he's, you know, he probably most likely will do that. I like that he gets the second supply depot as well. This way, he doesn't have to cut Marines at any point to get his command center and eventually that second depot up. But as the SCV enters the base, he actually does take just an incredibly late gas. So it's 17 supply. That is, I don't think I've seen anybody do that in a very long time, if ever.
It's late. It's weird because that gas is still before the command center, which is a little odd. Normally you see it the other way around, but I'm sure it will work out for Bomber one way or the other. We know that he lost 3 Rex openings, almost more than any other Terran out there. Tried to block this Nexus for a little bit, but he won't succeed in doing so. And once more, a big shout out to all the StarCraft fans that are still watching this. We just saw some tweets coming in. Some people on the interwebs showing some love for Bomber. Of course, one of the most popular Terrans out there.
Yeah. You know, one thing that I actually really want to see in this match, we didn't get to talk about this too much in their first bout on this map because of the the obvious build choice by CranK, but Bomber did something very interesting. He still got a very late gas. It was still later than a normal 15 supply gas, and he went for that 1-1-1, but he also got a very fast stim on his barracks, and we see that the factory is starting up. This probe looking for first blood will not find that. But I'm wondering if Bomber feels that sense, he probably won't see that blink again, which so far he's definitely not going to see that. Maybe he wants to try that build once more, since I don't think he showed too much of what it was capable of to CranK, but you know, just speculating at this point, it did look a bit different, his original plan on this map.
Of course, guys, to you, it might all seem like a little irrelevant, you know, 15 gas, 16 gas, the changes are not that big, but a player like Bomber does it for a reason. He doesn't just drop his gas 1 or 2 supply later because he suddenly feels like it. It all adds up to the big plan all along in the long run. But if I look at the production tab right now, if I'm CranK, I'm very pleased with that. I'm going 1 gate fast expand with a robotics facility as follow-up. He should have observers in time. The start is going down right now for Bomber while the first Widowmine is in production. But, you know, normally if you have observers, you can send your first observer across the map. You make a second observer to keep it at home. You're going to do more than fine against this quick Widowmine style.
Yeah, he has all the detection necessary to hold off any type of Widowmine drop. So, and it's all, I mean, the also other plus is the observer can go straight across and possibly even see a medevac coming. But so Bomber, and this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier. This stim is still pretty sharply timed. That second barracks is on the way.
That's a super quick Robo Bay.
This is actually starting to remind me of the Alicia build that we saw against Neeb twice in a row in yesterday's groups.
And this is, of course, a relatively small map as well. It's no Altazim. It's not the same travel distance as a cross map for us. This is a good scan by Bomber because he sees the robotics facility. He does not see the Robo Bay just yet, but there is a very big chance as soon as he goes in with that drop that he will eventually see that Robo Bay, and that might help him a little bit. Unlike Frost or Yangsu or whatever, there is a ramp going up to the natural here, so it's harder to make a 2-base Colossus push work like that because you have to push up a ramp, and it's going to be easier for Bomber to, you know, throw some bunkers down and buy himself more time for Vikings to spawn.
Yeah, his medevac is out, so he's going to try to drop 2 Widowmines. inside of CranK space. And as I mentioned, that observer is going to go across, coincidentally around the same time, and they may cross paths. I think, yeah.
They definitely
Medevac will go directly over this observer.
I wonder if he's going to pull the observer back or not. CranK, yes, he is going to send the observer back. Of course, the observer is a little slower than the Medevac, especially when boost is being researched. Now, obviously, Bomber would like to kill some probes, but above all, it's so important that he sees that Robo Bay down there. Medevac flying to the south side, he is going to see at least one gate, so that kind of gives away, like, hey, there might be something else in there. Yeah. He hasn't seen it just yet, though. This is really important that Bomber is going to scout this, because if he doesn't, it's going to be hard for him to hold in time.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that seems reasonably nice, he doesn't have a reactor for the starport, even if he knew it was coming, but he does have the starport fast. He already has 2 medevacs on the map. He doesn't necessarily need to produce more if this is, in fact, a 2-base Colossus all-in, but the observer sees both medevacs now crossing the map.
You know what's exciting is that this is going to be like a 9-minute stim drop in your base. Of course, it's not a whole lot of units, definitely not an overwhelming bioforce, but it's going to be hard for CranK to actually walk across the map, because do you really want to start committing to a Colossus attack when stimmed bio is already in your base? And Bomber, of course, would love to keep CranK just in his base, and that's the last thing that CranK wants, because CranK just wants to run across the map and get it over with.
Yeah, and that's the scary part of this builder, is the Colossi can do a really good job of defending against a push like this, but the adjustment that he made to get this mine drop while also having that crazy fast stim definitely makes it a bit awkward trying to push across the map. And yeah, now he's adding on bunkers. He's starting to move into Vikings defensively back home. He recognizes the threat, and it's really interesting to look at it, because it gives you a fun comparison against what happened to Neeb, where he also had the threat of the early stimmed medevacs, early stimmed bio with those medevacs outside. But as he brings everything home to defend, he still actually has a little mine tucked inside of CranK space.
Bomber is going to shut down this first pylon. He might even be able to pick up that probe as well. There is still another pylon which is not too far away, so this is not the end of the world for CranK. CranK is going to commit to this attack. We have 2 Vikings on the map, I believe, 2 more Vikings in production. It's all going to come down to repair. It's going to come down to how well will these Widow Mines do, and above all, will Bomber get the time to get 4, maybe even 6 Vikings out. But at least with 4 Vikings, you start putting out some serious damage on this Colossus. This is a key moment right now in this game. Not the best map for this build, but it could work, but I think that Bomber is well prepared.
Yeah, there's not really many Zealots to tank any damage, so these Stalkers will die to the direct Marauder fire if they try to focus on these Vikings.
Repair.
And these Vikings are able to deal quite a bit of damage. First bunker drops, though, and now the next 2 Vikings come up, and I feel like if CranK steps up, he actually drops 2 time warps, and Bomber knows he doesn't have to step forward quite yet. This mule is going to town on the supply depot to keep it alive.
He's like, that's not what I signed up for, man. I'm supposed to get rich. I'm good in getting rich. CranK moves forward. He will be able to snipe that one of the Widowmine, I want to say, but it actually gets repaired. And one Colossus, no, actually the Mothership Core will fall. That's a nice pickup as well, because if this push is over, and CranK was already producing a few probes, so I have the feeling that he is thinking about transitioning. Look at the macro, by the way. He has quite a bit of extra minerals.
The Colossus with 2 hit points surviving that fight.
But the drops right now are really scary. If Bomber, the moment he feels safe, and he's not safe just yet, it's going to be another tough hold, because he doesn't have a whole lot of units. One Colossus is still not falling, as Bomber shot at the wrong one.
Yeah, this is a really scary situation. Those Zealots, they're not something you can just brush off. They're going to mess either with his full production line or pull him back, and CranK's actually, he's making his way back home.
And that observer is going to spot that Widowmine in the main. He's like, oh, I did not expect to see you there. I didn't know you were there. That Widowmine could have caused havoc, by the way.
Yeah, do you think CranK needed to pull back this at this time?
It's maybe not, but that's because we know. I think he's very, very worried about one drop flying across the map. He doesn't know exactly how much he slowed Bomber down. He doesn't know exactly how many bio units Bomber could potentially have. And he didn't really see any medevacs there. He saw Vikings. So I think he's really worried about just one drop killing so many workers and then just not having a choice anymore other than to go for a brainless all-in, which he knows is not going to work. So he didn't have to back off just yet, but you'd rather be safe than sorry when your tournament life is on the line, right?
Yeah, reasonable enough, especially against an opponent like Bomber, who's now getting that 3rd command center. The +1 armor is really only just underway for our Protoss player, and this is where that Warp Prison becomes really annoying. Bomber wants to step out across the map, Boom, 4 Zealots in your base. Has not yet begun to warp anything in with that, but he could try to move to the natural. Storm is on the way. Charge is past the halfway mark, and Bomber, now he's being pulled around a little bit.
I was about to say, this is like the ideal Bomber, let's pull SCVs, build a lot of Vikings scenario, how he used to kill so many Protoss players, but if Storm finishes up, then that's a push that's most likely not going to work anymore. Without Storm, he of course does have a third command center, but it doesn't mean anything to Bomber. If he feels he can win the game, he's just going to try and go ahead and win the game.
Yeah, and picking off that warp position is so nice. Completely eliminating that threat. Consider that I don't think there's any more pylons on Bomber's side of the map, so no more reinforcement points are available for CranK, and this means he could, if he wants, try to go for that attack, as you mentioned. But no SCVs being pulled or anything like
if
that.
I was Bomber, I wouldn't be expecting Storm just yet, but Storm is almost done, and I think the moment he sees it, he won't go for some crazy SCV pull, because, you know, that's just not worth it. It's just not going to work the majority of the time. 1 or 2 Storms against an army with 0 ghosts, and that doesn't really have a whole lot of healing power. Storm is so deadly.
Yeah, the probe actually manages to just walk right past the army, so he knows that Bomber is coming in.
Might get a cancel.
Yeah, I think he should be able to get a cancel on this. The
Storm is ready, though.
Coming in. Yeah, he does. He does have the Storm. The Templar is being very hesitant to run forward, so he does cancel that Nexus. He's not ready to pick a fight yet with Bomber, who pulls off a few Marauders, try to snipe the Templar, but no luck with that.
Okay, so I do not believe that CranK has any... What upgrades does he have?
Just +1 armor.
+1 armor, okay. Because for a second I thought this might actually be a fight that he could potentially take. He still has... No, he doesn't have a Colossus. Yeah, he has 2 Colossus. Where are they?
How often do you see a Terran player get +2 attack before the Protoss is +2 armor? This is interesting.
He's hiding the Colossus, which I don't mind at all, because he saw there was a ridiculous amount of Vikings. So he's like, okay, I can walk my Colossus forward, but they're going to shoot 1 time and it will just die. So I might as well just keep him back and push him back with my High Templars. And then later on, I can always still bring the Colossus to the party, and they will most likely be much more useful. Very smart move there by CranK. Small thing, but...
Not wasting any resources. 8 Templar on the map. Bomber is spreading out again. He cancels the 3rd base one more time. And he's starting to provoke, I feel, CranK, but I don't know if CranK is in a position to fight. I just feel like he has so many Zealots and he doesn't have an upgrade advantage. He's basically relying on Storms 100% to hold this game in place.
I think if they would really fight right now, it wouldn't even be that bad for CranK, but the problem is CranK doesn't have an economy to reproduce any units. And he might actually lose 2 High Templars over here. Nah, they'll morph into an Archon. Well done, but at the same time, the Nexus gets killed again, and this time there was no cancel. Bomber floated over that orbital to the gold. Bomber is playing this out really well so far.
Yeah, being so aggressive. And at the same time, at the top of the map is that 3 medevacs flying over towards CranK's base. He has a couple Zealots trying to harass the 3rd, but that's not where his base is. It's at this gold, and he already has a few units there. So forcing these units, and then suddenly those Colossi, they're like, hey, we got a job again, boys.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, that's talking about this, like you want to keep them alive, and then it's like, well, actually, they're great drop defense as well.
Yep, and Habitation is of course one of the maps where it's very difficult to defend against drops. It might not seem that difficult, but if your army is all the way south defending your 3rd base, or you're worried about the natural and the 3rd, or maybe out on the map, it's a super low eco game, by the way, as well. 41 against 45, but with 3 orbitals, I'm sure Bomber is more than fine. This also means that both players have a large army for this phase in the game. The army supply is massive.
Yeah, and especially with that gold, I think the economically speaking, with the gold base and mules, Bomber's definitely got a really efficient economy, and I feel like both players are keeping the money relatively low, especially now that we have ghosts coming onto the field. But
Bomber does not start any +3 upgrades just yet. I really feel with those ghosts, Bomber is going to try to go for it. He's going to try to land some EMPs and then just feel like, hey, I have a pretty sick army over here. 1 High Templar full of energy falls to that 3 Marauder hit squad, of which 2 survive even. And at the same time, we have lots of Zealots running across the map. Both players playing this out pretty well. I do really feel that Bomber wants to fight real soon, and this is a fight that he is counting on winning it decisively. If he doesn't, I think he's in trouble.
Yeah, especially with the counter Zealots going over towards his natural area. Those Widow Mines take a few shots. Ghosts are up front. Storm is in front of the army. Vikings managed to dodge. Hits an ICMP, but doesn't hit all of the Templar.
So many Zealots in the natural of Bomber right now. I think this might trigger Bomber to just go for it. Yep, Ghost going forward once more. Another scan going down. EMP Snipe actually being used on one of these High Templars. The Colossus are still alive as well. The Vikings are going to make short work of them. Nate, take it away. This is going to be a close one.
Yeah, he's bringing in the Vikings from the right side. The whole Bio army stemmed on top of this ramp. EMPs, all of the gateway units. 2 Templar come from the top. There's 1 Storm available. Gets him. 2nd Storm is ready, but the Widow Mine is there. It needs to be careful. Hits one of the Zealots. Also taking out one of the Templar, baits him forward with the Storm. The Vikings are just sitting on top of this army. There's no Colossi to shoot at those, so he just lands them, and a Zealot flank is brought in. The Widow Mines are going to help to chew and push this back, but most of the Zealots have been cleaned up. It's just a ton of Marauders versus Stalkers, Immortals, and well, I guess one of the Immortals is dead. This fight's looking better and better for Bomber, but he still doesn't have that supply lead because there's Zealots chewing his main and natural apart.
He lost pretty much all of the SFVs, but can CranK somehow, some way get an answer to his army? Look at the money from CranK. He had just wiped in 3 High Templars. If he's able to land some really juicy storms with that, he's got a force field that oh, okay, now he's like, I want a force field. He actually has quite a few sentries. CranK can just idle on 2 bases for a while.
There is a single SCV on the map, and he is not even running for his life. He's still trying to mine in the face of doom as Bomber is going to try to push up this ramp one more time. EMP hits just about everything. The Templar are still tucked in the back. There's still a few storms, but there's no force fields, and those Immortals, they're going to die pretty fast. They won't be able to kill too many of the Marauders. Templar get EMP'd in the mineral line with those probes. There's 2 Templar on the high ground without enough energy to storm, and Bomber picks off the natural Nexus, moving right in on top of this Protoss, whatever ball you want to call it now, because the rest of the Templar run down the ramp, all get killed instantly. GG. Bomber takes the first game in our final series.
If there was an EMP of the day award, that one goes. That just landed that EMP on the sentries will definitely get it. MVP of the game. Rarely do you see at the 22-minute mark sentries being absolutely game winners, because if CranK just waits on those 2 bases, every second that goes by, he's mining off 2 bases, his army will get bigger and bigger. 1 Colossus, few High Templars, he will be in excellent shape 1 minute from now on. Those sentries could have bought him that time. Bomber said, not on my watch, throws down the scanner. He had the high ground vision from the Medevacs and the Vikings and lands that game-winning MVP EMP. That's a lot of...
it feels so funny to say that being on the second base, like just the 2 base situation when your main is mostly mined out at that point in the game, but Bomber had nothing, just 1 SCV. All the command centers were in the air, and CranK, it's such a stressful situation, but those are the moments where, well, you decide the champions, and you can see here CranK definitely not happy with the results of that game. I feel like he knew that he definitely had a chance to bring that one in.
Yep, it looked like, okay, Bomber still just has too much, so many Marauders, but then actually CranK still has quite a few units. He didn't just lose all those Stalkers without putting up a good fight. No, he sent them back because he's like, hey, wait a minute, if I kill all of your SCVs, then if I just sit on these 2 bases, I can actually reproduce an army and you cannot. And
all you need to do is not die.
Yep. Close, really close game over here on Habitation Station. Even at the end of the night, it's 1:45 a.m. over here in Cologne, Germany. We get to see some awesome StarCraft action, and we often say StarCraft is a game of seconds. Well, if that wasn't a game-winning second, then I don't know what is.
Yeah, that actually surprisingly did squeeze out a scan there, despite the fact that the Zealots ripping his whole base apart. Definitely a tricky situation to be in. So the second map is Polar Night.
I must say, I already think it's brilliant that CranK even thought about that. He's like, hey, I can just go back and I can actually force field again. Obviously, force fielding is something that you think about early on and then at the very first fight. But later on, you think it's all about Storm, you think it's all about Colossus. No, actually, the sentries were the key to victory. It's very smart by CranK to be aware of that. But even smarter by Bomber to just land that game-winning EVP. And of course, CranK is just like, why didn't I split my sentries? Why were they even in range? That was so unnecessary.
Yeah, it's a rough game. And I wonder if that's... You can see the emotion on his face. I wonder if that's going to take a significant toll on his play here. Because if he loses this game, that's it. It's all over.
Well, we're about to find out. Our second game is going to be played on Polar Night. CranK versus Bomber. It could potentially be the last match of the night of this very long day of StarCraft action. We are loaded into the game. And Nate, you can take it away.
All right, well, our first player here, spawning in the top position of Polar Night. He is on his WCS America deathbed now. He needs to win this game, or that's it. From Team Axiom, it is CranK. The heat is on, as that game, he knew he was so close to achieving victory against this man in the south position. The blue Terran player, sponsored by Red Bull, it is Bomber.
It was such a bizarre game one as well, because normally when you have a Colossus push like that, either it works or it doesn't, and if it doesn't, then even when the Protoss falls back, the majority of the time it's over. This time it wasn't really over, and I thought it was so cool as well that CranK kept those Colossus at home for a while, because he's like, hey, I have nothing to protect them anyways, I only have 2. They are sitting ducks over here for those Vikings, and then that one drop, which normally could have been a game-winning drop, was not a game-winning drop, because those 2 Colossus were still partying at home with a few reinforcement zealots. He was able to deal with it. Just a really I haven't seen a lot of PvTs play out in that way.
Yeah, especially considering the way that Bomber opened with the weird, really late gas mine drop with still like an 8-9 minute stim drop. That's like one of those things where if you try to play standard, you can die very quickly, but a build that gets a Colossus that fast is almost like an accidental counter to it.
Yeah, it's like, I hope I won't have to deal with anything early. Wait, that's like the only thing I can actually deal with. Either way, Bomber is sending his SCV across the map. Once more, CranK taking both simulators. I do feel it was a little later than Habitation, but taking him still pretty early, and also putting 3 probes in each simulator.
So Bomber, once again, looks like he's set up to go for something like a 1 barracks fast expand. But again, it's this gas after his second depot. And it's a very late gas. I guess he does a similar build order to the last game. But what does CranK do on this map? I feel like this map has a couple more options, I think, for Protoss versus Terran.
Upgrade complete.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure, but I would be surprised if Bomber again goes for a 1 Rex factory build. It's especially if he decides to go for a command center as well, and looking at his minerals and looking at this one very ambitious SUV that definitely wants to build a command center. It's just like all written over that drilling claw that he has. He's like, I want to build a command center.
I got the minerals, I got my zoning permit. We're making this happen.
You have to work for that permit. It's not easy to get it on Polarnite, man. Like, they're trying to protect the environment and stuff. But he will build that SUV. I'd be very surprised if Bomber follows this up with it in the factory. I would not be a big fan of it, doing it 3 games in a row, or like 3 out of 4 games against a player like CranK, especially on a map like Polarnite as well, where blink aggression is really popular, and bam, there we go, Twilight Council being dropped. I would not like it if Bomber does it again.
Yeah, it's a low unit build, and unless he can... Okay, he does get the second barracks. All right, so looks like our prayers have been answered. So he will have access to a little bit more just general infrastructure. The way that he plays this out, though, he still gets a very fast factory, and maybe this is just a super fast stim with medevac drop, just without, you know, maybe just off of 2 barracks.
Or he's just worried about blink, and he gets quite a few units out, but then he uses Widow Mines defensively.
You think? Yeah, Widow Mines, you think?
I mean, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, they're
if there's no detection, yeah, I actually have to agree with you. I mean, he's seen at least so far no very fast Nexus.
You don't need to get 5, but just having 1 or 2 for those guaranteed stalker kills, if they blink forward, that can be very nice. 2 more gates being added in the main base of CranK. Bomber, when's the last time that you scout? Other than that one SCV, this is the same build as CranK showed us on Habitation Station. It's a build that has fallen out of fashion for a while. A lot of Terran players say the 1 base blink all in, that's okay to deal with. The 2 base blink all in, that's the one that we struggle with. Widow Mine is being ready, but like no starport just yet. I wonder what he's going to do with that gas. Okay, he makes a tech lab. I think that Bomber is preparing himself, even though that second factory, second refinery might tell us something else, but I think he is aware of this at least. It's going through his mind.
Yeah, he has to at least considered it, but the lack of a scan is what bothers me. Okay, there he does scan, and he sees the Twilight.
That's a good scan, Bomber. That's an excellent scan for him. Here goes that Widow Mine, gets a couple of shots from this Mothership Core. What do you think that Bomber does right now? Would you mind it if he abandons the low ground and focuses only on defending 1 base?
Well, he's actually starting to build a siege tank. So here's the thing. That blink upgrade will be done in 40 seconds. His siege tank will be out in about 20 seconds. He could put it at the natural, then he's at risk of getting blinked on. If CranK blinks into the main, the positioning on this Widow Mine means it's guaranteed to fire. It's almost 100% guaranteed to fire on a Stalker that will have blink on cooldown, so he gets at least 1 unit kill.
Well, Bomber is about to see that CranK is behind his natural.
Oh, wow.
He's going to see that Mothership Core. A couple of Stalkers could blink forward. Of course, the tank is not in range of this. Here come the Stalkers. I would personally not mind it at all if Bomber just evacuates the low ground for a while.
Yeah, I think it's standard practice that the low ground against this 1 base style. If you know the Protoss doesn't have an expansion, why bother trying to hold? You have 2 command centers, you have double mule. Losing this command center would be far worse than any minerals lost by moving to the main. And the siege tank gets sniped. This is one of those vulnerabilities of stretching yourself out, trying to hold that natural expansion. And CranK is doing a surprising amount of damage with this attack so far.
Still quite a few Marines, and a lot of these Stalkers are not able to shoot. A lot of the Stalkers took quite a bit of damage as well. There is a second siege tank, and I think right on this moment, Bomber is indeed going to evacuate the low ground. He lost a few SCVs, but guys, that doesn't matter at all. All that Bomber has to do is just survive for quite a while. With those 2 orbital commands, he should still be in an excellent position. The only thing I'm a little worried about, Nathan, is that he doesn't have any add-ons to any of those Rexes. Now we do see him drop at least 1 add-on, because you don't want to sit on slow Marines and tanks for the rest of the game.
I feel like he wanted to get stim, and then when he recognized what was coming, he's like, okay, well, let's just actually get some siege tanks instead. He put that factory on there. It's so weird to see play with just barracks, factory, and no starport at this stage in the game, because there's no way for Bomber to be aggressive now. All he can do is try to defend, which is really all he needs to do. And the Stalkers are trying to press the front. Killing that mothership core would be a huge boon, and he gets it. A second siege tank pops out, and now this is a situation where he doesn't have the vision to dive on that siege tank. And Bomber, I would actually love to see him put an engineering bay there, but I guess that's a bit ambitious of me. CranK will go to place a Nexus.
Oh, nice done, and well done there by CranK. Nicely moving that Stalker just in time. There will be a Nexus going down in his natural right now, so we're basically starting from scratch, taking a look at the economic state of the game. 26 against 23, but the orbital done already. I kind of like Bomber's position, but with Blink out there, there's definitely stuff that CranK can do to slow Bomber down in case he has any ideas about moving across the map real soon. He has to worry about that with a mine as well. Some excellent decisions there by both players. Bomber realizing how important it is to kill that mothership core. The moment he did that, he's fine. Of course, Bomber could theoretically go for a super weird version eventually of 1-1-1, but I don't think that's a good idea against when you know that Blink is already out on the map, because Blink is fantastic against those kind of builds. CranK again makes sure that he can reset that with a mine.
Yeah, I actually like that CranK is holding this position. I feel like scaring Bomber, even though he built that Nexus, scaring Bomber into not taking that natural is the best way that CranK can recover from the early aggressive investments that he's made. And with this mothership core back over here, he could still throw a few Stalkers into the main base and just be as annoying as possible.
There are 3 tanks there pretty close to each other, and if he wants to take out this 1 tank, there are 2 other tanks covering it. I'm not sure how well this Blink is going to work out. He already lost 1 Stalker, and Stalkers are pretty expensive units if you're on 1 base.
Yeah, actually kills another one.
Is that a misblink?
Yeah, misblink. 2 more Stalkers. Tumbles off the cliff there.
Ambitious plan there for CranK, but that one didn't work out, and when perhaps behind, when Tournament Live is on the line, you can go Dark Shrine as well. He has pylons all over the place, but there is a missile turret as well. I saw a missile turret right next to that tank.
Yeah, I almost wonder if it was just there to help defend the siege tank in case the mothership core tried to poke up. But it's just, it feels like a weird spot for a missile turret.
Yeah, I know.
He won't have any. The thing is, he won't actually. Maybe, I guess if the tanks are here, if a Dark Templar tried to run by, even though there's no units at the turret, I think the tanks would still kill it.
Yeah. He'd be fine. The reveal range is pretty large as well.
That's a weird way to defend Dark Templar.
I'm not sure if it was for DTs. It probably had multiple purposes, but it works out great. There is an observer that's gonna say hello soon. He has to be careful that he doesn't fly into the turret. Perhaps he already saw it. Does CranK know about the turret?
Yeah, he spotted it.
Okay.
That'd be also pretty rough.
That happens to me all the time, man. All of these Stalkers are ironically just spread out over there. Perhaps worried about a drop, but I don't even think there is a starport yet on the map, is there? Oh, he just finished it, okay.
Okay, yeah, and he built a reactor with the factory. But the transition for CranK, aside from that Dark Shrine that he made, he did build a robotics bay. He's actually pumping out a few Immortals, and the first Dark Templar is being warped in. It looks like it's behind that natural area.
Oh, you took out the rocks?
Oh, wow.
That's pretty sick.
Man, it's the gift that keeps on giving from those Blink Stalkers.
Oh, well said there. Couldn't have said it any better myself.
He brings in a second Dark Templar. I mean, mules are being called down. It's really weird to think that if he goes into the natural and not the juicier main, he can probably do more damage. And yeah, the missile turret isn't here. Well, he does have 1 scan. Picks off just 1 Dark Templar.
And he can build a second missile turret in range of that first missile turret. Well, that one is not in range of that first missile turret. So now this DT can actually sneak in again and still get quite a few kills. He has a very small window, but he has a window of 10-15 seconds. And that is normally enough to kill, 6-7 SCVs.
Yeah, and he's going to be able to pick off a few. He's trying to block the positioning with the siege tanks. It's one of those few times you can use that StarCraft Master Challenge to kill your own SCV with the splash damage from the tank to get the Dark Templar. The least used skill you would learn in that.
Immortal hammering away on something. I guess the backdoor rocks over here for CranK. taking a look at the probe count for CranK, he's currently at 43 probes against 39 SCVs for Bomber. Again, a pretty bizarre game. Nothing super out of the ordinary, but just the way that it went. Looking at the unit compositions, this is not what you normally see in a 15-minute PvT. And most of the time you see High Templars spread out all over the place, a bunch of Colossus, both players just take some map control. Right now we're looking at a very low eco game with tanks, Widow Mines. Combat Shield is not even halfway done. Thermal Lens is not done just yet. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a surprisingly close back and forth game. Some of the stats look pretty funny. He's killed 23 SCVs this game, but the investment he made into that tech kind of has to still have himself in a position where this bio attack from Bomber could do a lot of damage. There's one Colossus on the field, and he's actually not building a second one yet either. So this is all he's really got to defend. The Immortals, though, will be great versus the tanks with all those Zealots.
But will they be able to connect with those tanks? That's what I'm a little bit worried about right now. 93 army supply for Bomber against 78 for CranK. Of course, he's going to have to be careful how he wants to go at this with these tanks. Blinkstalk is excellent in buying some time for himself. Thermal Lens is still not ready. There's no way that CranK wants to fight before Thermal Lens is ready. First, Vikings are making their way across the map as well. The good thing is for Bomber, he has 3 orbitals, so it's not like CranK can send in 1 DT at a time, because that will most likely be not worth the investment. Against 2 orbitals, it would, but against 3, that's not worth it.
No, I like this posturing. He's trying to keep the mines in front of the tanks and keep the tanks behind the bio. Potent Overcharge is activated. So at the very least, he's been able to get that out, and he can try to stall. He's being surprisingly aggressive. Gets some Mothership Core. And that Time Warp won't be able to do too much, as Bomber has already evaded it. Continuing to stream units across the map, and at the same time moving into Vikings and getting his armory for additional upgrades.
And keeping the Protoss contained a little bit while being on 3 orbitals yourself, even though the 3rd orbital is not in place just yet. As a Protoss, eventually you're gonna have to do something about this badass contain. Running into Widow Mines is scary. Running into Widow Mines with tanks behind it, that is a nightmare.
Yeah, funny you think the Widow Mines can be so good versus the Zealots when the Zealots really want to get past those Widow Mines to the siege tanks.
This is a super interesting TVP contain. How often do you see this, Nate? You can actually snipe that pylon, exactly how Funka points out. You're so close, Bomber.
You can shut down basically half the production at this point.
Yeah, empowering those 3 gates would actually be quite massive. Tanks are coming closer and closer. Photon Overcharge is out. He did not remake the Mothership Core. He is getting High Templars though, and those High Templars can be morphed into Archons.
What an awkward push.
Yes. This is not something that... The first game was bizarre. The second game is even more bizarre.
Yeah, CranK's realized that. He actually built another pylon by those gateways, but this Nexus is starting to take a little bit of siege fire, and Bomber, he's just saying, come at me. I'd love for you to run all your Zealots into these Widow Mines. There's a total of 5 Widow Mines spread out around here. And with the splash damage onto those Zealots, if he keeps these Marines spread, it should do a lot of damage. He moves in. Immediately, all those Zealots destroyed by the Widow Mines. The Colossi, though, are still getting in a lot of good shots. The Viking count is quite low. Bomber is being pushed back, but the first Colossus is destroyed. Those medevacs, not enough energy to actually keep healing, but everything has finally been destroyed. Bomber will take this series 2-0 and advance to the round of 8 here at the WCS America round of 16. What a crazy situation, you asked. Have you seen this composition before? This is the ultimate Terran versus Protoss freestyle contain.
Beautiful execution there by Bomber. Bomber showing us that he's not only a world-class macro player, but that he's also able to adapt on the fly to these crazy scenarios that he can be thrown into. This was definitely a pretty bizarre scenario. Tried to secure the low ground at first, and then he's like, wait, this is not going to work because CranK is doing this very well. I'm going to have to abandon the low ground, then get some tanks out, eventually stabilize on 2 bases, and then went for this bizarre TVP push. But he executed it like he practiced this 10 times. I do not believe it, Nate. I don't buy it. This is just Bomber being a natural talent.
Yeah, he's shown us some very interesting choices of strategies throughout all his games. You know, a stark contrast to players like Poltertasia that we've seen open up a lot of Reapers in this matchup in the past. But I think that's the Bomber special. He brings builds that you wouldn't expect.
This was definitely quite a Bomber special. So we're back. That's it, guys. This is it for WCS America. Of course, we are going to have some closing words, and more importantly, we're going to have the drawing as well for the quarterfinals, which are going to be played on Thursday and Friday. Or what is it? Friday just semifinals? No, it must be a quarterfinal as well.
It's stressed out across those 4 days.
All right, 4 days. Lots of WCS America and WCS Europe action. We know our final 8. I can't wait to see who is going to play who. Out out of Group D. So at the end of the day, Polt and Bomber made it out. I guess that's kind of in the line of expectation, but it wasn't easy for either of them, I'd say. Even though Polt looked pretty convincing, but especially Bomber had to work for it, but he's here.
Yeah, I'm sure Polt was more happy he was able to just go to sleep way before everybody else in this group.
So it is what we expected, but still, we saw some awesome games. We saw some crazy unorthodox TVP. I can't wait to see what Paul has to say it, and Bomber as well. So guys, take it away.
Thank you, Rotterdam. Yes, I am with Red Bull Bomber. Congratulations. Great victory in the end. How difficult was it for you in this group? How difficult was it to play against CranK?
When I get first, I blame ESL. Always my group is group of death. And round of 32, so I'm sad.
Yeah, you've had two very difficult groups. You had Jaedong in round of 32 to come through, and Arthur as well, and then now you've had another difficult group with Polt, but you've qualified, so it's good, okay?
Yeah, now okay.
Now it's okay, okay. With the quarterfinals coming up, is there anyone in the round of 8 that you don't want to play right now?
The player who?
To any of the players? Tasia, maybe? You want to play Tasia?
I don't want to play TBT. I want to play TBP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that your best matchup right now?
Because of patch.
Okay. So is the patch, is that Widow Mines?
Before patch, TBP was, I think, unbalanced, but now TBP is good for Terran, a little bit. Yeah, so TBP is okay.
Okay, so do we think this year Terrans can start winning tournaments?
Sorry.
This year, maybe Terrans win more?
Maybe.
Maybe you win?
30%.
Okay. So okay, not confident, but okay.
Polt 50%, me 30%, Teja 30%.
Okay, I like that. That's very good. Thank you very much, Bomber. Great for Bomber to do that in English as well for us, because unfortunately we didn't have a Korean translator here. We are going to just catch up with our commentary team now to get their final thoughts of the day and of the round of 16. But don't go too far away. We'll be right back with the draw for the round of 8 and find out who this guy is going to play in the quarterfinals.
All right, thanks, Paul. And I guess final thoughts. Pretty interesting. Bomber puts Polt over Tasia to take this season of WCS America.
Well, he did win 2 seasons. He did win WCS Season 2. He did win WCS Season 3 as well. And Tasia has a little bit of a break. And, 2014 so far has not been a year of Tasia just yet. Then again, the summer months are not here. And last time in 2012, he started in the summer and it kind of ended at the end of the summer. Last year, it started in the summer and he just kept on going for the rest of the year. So there's no telling if it's going to be the same this year. Either way, Nate, we know our final 8. It's just a matter of time before we know who plays who. But just to go through all the crazy action one more time that we had in the last 2 days. In the first day, we saw Oz, Hyun, Alicia, and Revival advance. So 2 Protoss players and 2 Zerg players made it through. And earlier today, we saw Tasia win his group pretty convincingly, with Arthur being the runner-up. And we just saw your 2 Terran favorites make it through, Polt and Bomber. Pretty stacked, pretty cool top 8, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm excited. There's lots of Terrans to watch. I mean, some of the other WCS regional tournaments that we've been seeing, the GSL, SPL, not as much Terran as I like to see. I'm quite happy with the top 8 that we've managed to get, and just looking at that top 3, or at least in my book, Tasia, Polt, Bomber. I can't see anything but great games coming.
I'm kind of happy about this as well, because in the start of the season, I mentioned 4 overwhelming favorites and 1 very dangerous outsider. And then the very first 2 that I mentioned were actually eliminated, and people said, like, Roddy's jinxing all 5 of them. And I'm glad that the 3 Terrans that I mentioned are still going strong. Perfect race distribution, 3 Terrans, 3 Protoss, and 2 Zerg. Well, it's perfect if you play Terran Zerg.
It's about as good as you can get.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we would love to put 9 players in the quarterfinals, but then it gets really awkward. It could be kind of unfair. Either way, Paul, I know that you're just as excited as I am to figure out who's playing who, and that's what we're going to start with real soon. So, Paul, take it away.
Thanks very much, Rotterdam, and thank you to all of our commentators over the last couple of days who've worked very long hours and put a tremendous amount of effort in, and also to our lovely observer who did get let out of his cage earlier. I saw him wandering around with food. I don't know who decided to feed him, but it was after midnight as well. Let's just hope he's not a gremlin. Thank you very much to Funker, to Todd, to Kalaris, to Nathanius, and to Rotterdam. It's been a fantastic weekend of StarCraft 2. It's come to an end now, but we do have the round of 8 draw. Joining me is one of our admins. Thank you, Graham, for joining us. He's going to make the draw. The way this is going to work, let me just explain some of the rules to you. We are going to draw out all 8 players. The 8 players concerned cannot face each other if they were winners of their groups or second place in their groups, and they cannot face any player they've already played in group play. So we're going to draw the runners-up first in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll draw the winners of their groups against them. But remember, they can't be on the same side of the bracket if they've already played that player in the previous group stage. So I hope that's clear for you. Graham, if you wouldn't mind, let's draw the first player out into the round of 8 for WCS America Season 1 2014. And our first player out, as Rotterdam will come and join us in a minute. Our first player is Bomber. So Bomber goes into the first spot. Runner-up, of course, just now in Group D. We saw that happen. And the next one out, he will not play the next player out. The next player will go into position 2 on the bracket, but he will be in the same half of the draw as Bomber. Let's see who it is. It's from Group A, and it's Hyun. Okay, so hold on a second. Let's just write that down. We're going to update the graphics as we get them as well. So Hyun, Zerg, of course, from Group A, finished as runner-up, and he will be drawn into the same half of the draw as Bomber. We do have a little bit of a technical problem right now, but we will update the draw as it goes. Graham, draw the third one. And in the bottom half of the draw for the round of 8, let's see who it is. It's Revival. So Revival, coming out of Group B, goes into position 3. 3 of our draws done so far. Interesting. Bomber's got Hyun on one side of the draw already. We'll have a chat with Rotterdam in a minute about what this means. Let's just confirm our 4th and final player out. And it should be Arthur from Group C. Just to make sure the draw's absolutely spot on. It is indeed Arthur from Group C. So we've got our first 4 out, Roddy. Bomber on one side of the draw with Hyun. It's going to be a feisty little fight, depending on who they end up playing with in the quarterfinals, but still a great side of the draw. And Revival and Arthur drawn on the same side of the draw as well. That's going to be tricky.
Yep, hard to truly say that much about it right now. I think every one of these players will be quite okay with it. I think they're much more worried about their up-and-coming quarterfinal opponent, which is, of course, one of the group winners.
Yeah, indeed. So we've got Bomber and Hyun at the top end, which means A and D cannot be drawn out of there. So Oz can't go in there and nor can Pulse. So it's going to be Alicia or Tasia against Bomber or Hyun. And I already know that Bomber does not want to play Tasia in that game.
No, he was pretty vocal about not wanting to play against Polt. I guess Tasia is very close to being his second least favorite opponent. So I guess for Bomber, he's hoping for Alicia. And that would be a great matchup. I would love it.
Okay, Graham, are you ready? Let's pop 2 balls in. These are from the other 2 groups. And come on, spin them around a little bit, please. Rotterdam.
I did my best.
Okay. We will confirm these after the draw is done in full for you. Unfortunately, graphics have not come online, but let's find out who the first draw is. It's Alicia, who will play Bomber. So Bomber gets his wish in some ways. He gets a TVP, and he avoids playing Tasia, the winner of Group C. Let's just confirm this. Hyun will play Tasia, the very player he did not want to play. He said to us yesterday, of all the players in the round of 8, doesn't want to play Tasia. Rotterdam, it's a dream draw for Bomber, and I can hear him in the background. He's very happy. But Hyun is going to be absolutely distraught the fact that he's got to play Tasia that early.
I think it's a dream draw for the audience as well, though. This is the quarterfinals that I think we're hoping for. Alicia looked really solid in the round of 32 and the round of 16. Now he's going up against Bomber. That's his biggest test just yet. It's going to be an amazing game because I know that Alicia has been becoming very good again. He was very good a while ago, and then we kind of had the feeling he fell off. It's going to be an amazing quarterfinal, and Hyun versus Tasia, that is a potential tournament final almost anywhere. Yeah. So that is amazing, TVZ. Pretty sure Nathan is going going to be very stoked for that one. Really good matchups.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Alicia is quite right. He's 4-0 in round of 32 and round of 16. One of the few players that's gone through both rounds. Graham is back to complete the draw at the bottom of the draw. Revival is the man who will play our next opponent out of the cup. Graham, please draw our third player out on the second half of the draw. And Revival will play the winner of Group D, Polt. You can hear the joy in the background. I think that might be, although I'm not so sure it might be joy. Polt seems okay with that. We'll find out from Kalaris in just a minute how happy he is about that. Let's just confirm the draw, because our final man out should be Oz from Group A, and it is. So Arthur will play Oz. That's going to be a very interesting matchup, actually. Nice PvP. I think Todd will be happy with that one. There's a little bit of everything for everyone in there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Graham. Graham's going to disappear in just a moment. Rotterdam, stay there. We're going to get your thoughts as well. But first, let's go over to Kalaris, who's with some of the players, and get the reaction from Polt.
Alrighty, guys. Well, indeed, I have Polt with me here, who's going to be going up against Revival. So, how do you feel about that match going into the round of 8?
I don't like it too much.
No.
I mean, you see, we have same uniforms. We wear it, so I don't like it.
Are you enjoying having Revival with you in CM Storm now?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Practice partner, good.
No, because he's living in Korea, but I'm living in America.
Okay. And then Bomber going up against Alicia, was it? Alicia? Yes. Yeah? How do you feel about that game?
Yes, I like it.
Yeah, you like it?
Protoss.
Protoss good?
I like Protoss.
Okay, so Bomber play up against Protoss, and then Oz got his wish. PvP good. PvP's good for Oz as well. So our round of 8 is shaping up to very good with these guys, and we're looking forward to it. And now back over to Paul.
Thanks very much, Kalaris, getting the quick thoughts there of our Koreans on the front row. Rolly, let's just have a look at this quarterfinal. Let's go through them one by one. Bomber versus Alicia. Bomber said in his interview at the very end of Group D, TVP, please. I can't remember the last time a Terran actually stood on a live show and said, I want to play a Protoss. But he does, and he said it's because the patches work for him. He feels like Terran's now got a little bit of an advantage against Protoss, that they now maybe have to figure the Terrans out. So he's thrilled with that. How do you think Alicia will feel about it? Do you think it'll be okay because it's an opportunity for him to really show how strong he is now?
Yeah, I think he is okay with it. He showed us already that he's playing a very different style of PvT than we've seen in the last few months. And obviously, Bomber is quite okay with TVP right now if it comes down to the stun that, High Templar charge lots openings because the Wither Mines are that effective. But, once a Protoss player starts opening up with Colossus, it completely changes the dynamic of the matchup. So I'm really excited. I definitely don't think it's going to be a sweep for Bomber. I can understand that he's happy with it. Then again, it's all smiles in that corner. They're all smiling and giggling, so I guess they're all happy in a way. I can understand why he's happy with it, but I also don't think that Alicia is shaking in his boots.
Okay. One man that's not going to be happy with this draw is a man who's not actually with us this evening. He's gone back to Dusseldorf. Is Hyun. If you're watching, I'm sorry, Hyun. I know I promised that we wouldn't make you play Tasia, but it seems that the draw came out that way after all. And Hyun will play Tasia. He's not going to be happy about it. Tasia will be okay with it, I guess.
I think Tasia is okay with most things. I guess as long as he avoided the Terrans, because TVT in the end of the day, he lost those important WCS championships in TVTs. His TVZ, how many tournaments did he win beating Zergs in the final?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's going to be okay with it, but it's also not a walkover for Tasia. He showed us multiple times. He is absolute world class. And every single time when you think I know Hyun is really good, but I don't think he's that good. He surprises you, and he is that good. So it's going to be a cracker as well, Paul.
Hey.
It's going to be a cracker.
Todd's going to be stirring in the background somewhere. Let's look at the bottom half of the draw now. Revival versus Polt. Couldn't believe it when it came out. We saw the smiles from Polt. He was relatively happy with it, but not happy with it because obviously it's his teammate in CM Storm. So they're guaranteed one player in the semis. That's great. But I'm sure they didn't want a team kill in the round of 8, did they?
No, exactly. It's kind of catch-22. It's I'm happy, but on the other end, I would have preferred perhaps to play someone else. Then again, I think it's also just an entertaining matchup for us. I think we are the winners. Perhaps the players are not, but Polt is the favorite. But Revival did play very clean in his games. Then he suddenly did lose 2 games against Protoss, but every Zerg will attest to that sometimes that can just happen before you know it. It's I felt I was doing pretty good and I had reads on this Protoss, and then I lost. But in general, Revival is a player with good macro as well. of course, there will be a couple of players there immediately say like, Revival barely won against Neep, so how is he going to win against Polt? I don't think he should look at it, but I do think this is the one where we have a clear favorite, and I think it's Polt, but also most likely not a sweep, but maybe a 3-1 Polt.
Okay, and our final game in the round of 8 will be Arthur versus Oz, an all PvP matchup. Well, we were bound to get one of them, we would have thought, but there were only 3 Protoss. I say only 3 Protoss in this round of 8 because it's quite unusual to only see that many. It's perfectly balanced in many ways. We've got 3-3-2 set up across the 3 races. We've got a PvP matchup, which means we guarantee one of them in the semis, but it also means we lose one of them. The Terrans have all avoided each other as well, and the Zergs have managed to end up in both different halves of the draw. So this is perfect. I don't know if we could have come up with a better way of, doing it, even if we wanted to rig it, could we?
Those balls did feel a little hot and cold.
But Arthur Oz, last game, PvP.
Yeah.
Nicely set up. I think it's going to be a very interesting match for Arthur because he gets to go up against a player who's in good form again and has shown us at the start of last year that he was really good. Hasn't really had that opportunity to do that yet in 2014. So a man on the up against a player who is red hot right now and very, very dangerous. I think he might just be the most dangerous player in the round of 8 for anyone to play right now.
Yeah, he's definitely that dangerous outsider, that dark horse. But if there's one red line that went through Oz's career, it's been his PvP. He's been really good in it once upon a time when everyone felt it was a complete dice roll. And then he was very vocal about it. Then it kind of backfired. But in the end of 2013, he again was really solid in this matchup. And when he made it to the semifinals of WCS America Season 3, that was off the back of some great PvP as well. He defeated Hero not once, but not twice, but like 3 times in a short amount of time. And I've never seen Hero like almost give up in the middle of a series where he's just like, I don't know what it is, but I can't beat this guy. Like every single build I do gets countered. So Oz is obviously feeling like, okay, this is a good draw for me. PvP, I can win. But Arthur is a funky Protoss, and being funky doesn't just matter in PvC and PvT. You can do a lot of silly stuff in PvP as well. So Oz can be overconfident because before you know it, you're down to 3.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for this weekend as well. It's been a long weekend, but I think one we've all enjoyed. And thank you for tuning in as well. It's been very nice of you to join us for groups A through to D of the round of 16, but they are already in the history books. It's now time to move on to the quarterfinals, but we are going to take a few days break. That's right. You get a few days off from StarCraft. Come back refreshed on Thursday as we feature 2 of the quarterfinals from WCS Europe, followed by 2 of the quarterfinals of WCS America. We'll do the same thing again on Friday, and then the semi-finals from both competitions on the Saturday, followed by the grand finals of WCS America and Europe Season 1 2014 on Sunday. That's next Sunday, a week from today. Just a recap of the quarterfinal draw for you. Bomber versus Alicia, Hyun versus Tasia, Revival versus Polt, and Arthur versus Oz. Thank you very much for joining us. This is WCS America signing out.